Hello guys, and welcome back. I'm Julianne, and basically today what I wanted to do was start off a new series here on the channel where I am going to be taking one of the different amigurumi books here that I've had for quite some time, and I'm going to be working through one pattern each month to give the books a review. So that's what we're going to do today, okay? So for January, the book that I chose was this new Harry Potter, the official book of Crochet Amigurumi. And this book is also by somebody named Julianne with Jody Revinson. So I thumbed through the book, and just on overall appearance's sake, the book is fabulous. It's gorgeous. They have really thought of everything. Not only are you getting the characters from the story, but you're also going to get other things as well, like the magical creatures you get to see come through. So not only the kids' pets that you saw in the film, like Crookshanks and Scabbers, but you also get some of the additional characters like Buckbeak and the Pygmy Puff. And you're also going to get enchanting artifacts as well, like the Skelligro bottle, the Monster Book of Monsters, and even a little chocolate frog that has the little container he's sitting in. Super, super cute, you guys. I absolutely love the style that this other crocheter has put into these characters, and I knew that as I went through the story, I wanted to make one of my favorite teachers, Professor Sprout. Now, Professor Sprout comes with a little teeny tiny mandrake, and oh my goodness, it is the cutest little thing I've ever seen. It also fits into this little pocket on her trousers as well. So she's got lots of pieces. She is considered an intermediate pattern, but I wanted to go ahead and give it a go. And so as I'm working through this pattern, I wanted to share with you my thoughts on the difficulty of how the patterns are structured, things to consider if you are new to crochet, and that sort of a thing. Being somebody that wants to create my own crochet books, I'm going to kind of look at this in a lens of how would I have structured the book, that kind of a thing. I love that in the book they give you lots of pictures of the characters from the actual films as well when you get to their patterns. I think that's a really nice touch that is interesting and different than some of the other books that I've seen. Hagrid's one of my favorites. Love him. And as we came to chapter 2, they give you little insight into what you'll be making. So you've even got the three-headed dog and the mermaid. There's Crookshanks. You've got your Pygmy Puff and the little pixies. Norbert and Buckbeak all make their appearance in this book, which is pretty darn cool. The attention to detail, look, this Scabbers even has 2 toes on his left foot and 3 on the other. I mean, that's pretty darn good for attention to detail if you ask me. I love it too when they make images that it's like a composition where you get the original boxing, and these are the Birdie Bots Every Flavor beans, and there's the crochet Scabbers. So cute. Just like in the movie. I love that. Now in the book, there are very few patterns that they consider to be advanced. Fluffy is one of those patterns. So this one did get the 3 lightning bolts score here, and this one's by Amy Tang. So my guess is because of where you're having to attach the 3 heads, I think that could be a little difficult to maneuver around that area. So that may be a big reason why you're seeing this being an advanced pattern. The other thing I noticed on many of the advanced patterns, like with Dumbledore as well, so anytime you're seeing bobble stitches, it seems like those are also an intermediate pattern. So even as you can see, they will give you lots of really good pictures of the finished characters. So as you can see with Norbert here, you get a nice side view picture so you could kind of visually see where to place things. You also get to see him here. There's the back view of him, so you can kind of see here where to attach the wings, as well as the other parts of him as well. Chapter 3, you get the enchanting artifacts. So look at this, guys. You get the keys, the flying keys. I love those. Monster Book of Monsters. There's the Howler. You get the Elder Wand, the egg that opens up in the Goblet of Fire. Skelligro bottle right here, which I think is super cute, would make a good Halloween decoration. And there's your snitch. I mean, look at that face. How cute. There's an even better view of the box, so you can really see those scalloped stitching that they did here around the edge. I was very surprised to see that Dobby, even though he does make an appearance in one of the images, it's just because we're making the Skelly Grow bottle in this one. We're not making Dobby, so he does not make an appearance in this one other than in this photo. And he did make it into a different Harry Potter book that is available that has more wearables and things for around the house. My guess is that the author probably figured because it was offered in the other one, they didn't want to offer it in this one, but it would have been nice to have a little Dobby, I think. So as I was going through and picking out the colors that I decided to use for Pamona, I wanted to use this as an opportunity to stash bust. I have a lot of yarns that are just balled up and they're in various stages of use. So I wanted to try to use what I had rather than going out and buying something new. In order to do that, I am kind of mixing and matching here. So I am using a little bit of cotton yarn for her trousers, her shoes, and it'll have one of the leaves on her hat in that sort of lime green sugars and cream cotton. The rest of it, however, is going to be acrylic yarn. So most of these are Red Heart Super Saver that I'm using. And although the pattern designer asks you to use a 1.75 millimeter crochet hook and to also use number 2 fine weight yarn for her, because I am going to be stash busting and using worsted weight yarn, which is number 4, I am using a larger hook size. So I am going to be using a 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, which would be a US size D if you are looking at the letters. So I am just adjusting to the size of yarn that I have. Okay, so if you are using a number 2 weight yarn, you would want to use the 1.75 millimeter crochet hook, just as recommended by the author. As I have started the pattern already, I'm going to go ahead and let you know some of my initial thoughts here as I've gone through. This is definitely not going to be a book that I would recommend for beginners. Now, I've only gone through this first pattern here. I cannot speak to all of the patterns, but if it is consistent with the pattern that we have here for Pamona, there are no in-progress pictures. You do not get help with figuring out where to put things, or if anything sounds confusing, there's nothing that's going to help guide you. You have to figure it out on your own. And added to that, there are quite a few instructions that I found very confusing. Now, what you'll find a lot of times in the book is that after you have already finished a round, it will then tell you an instruction you should have known at the beginning of that round. So then that requires you to most likely frog back so that you can fix whatever it is that you thought you did right. Those kinds of things, when you're creating an amigurumi book, you shouldn't have to try that hard, right? It should be laid out easily for you, for anybody to understand. Although, yes, I did make my way through. Yes, I was able to do the pattern. There were definitely some areas where it was made very difficult. Some of that was in doing the shoes even, and the build up to building up the body. So, you know, it was telling you to leave the green behind at the shoes. You'd pick it up later. What it didn't tell you on later on was that when it tells you to go back to the shoes, it's acting as though you carry them up. So I ended up making this really weird looking green waistband thing on her unclothed body. And I realized that that didn't look right. So I wasn't quite sure what I had done wrong. Well, if you are going to be using the green yarn later to make an outer cuff for the boot, that would have been nice to know that that's what you were using that yarn for. Okay, so that was one very confusing part. I figured it out, but again, it was not an easy thing. And I did have to do a little bit of rejiggering to get it going again. Another area that was problematic was as you are attaching the pieces together, you can see that her arms are a little off center. It won't, and it's interesting because it won't actually tell you to attach things until you've already attached them, if that makes sense. So it'll give you the instruction And then at the end of the instruction, we'll say an arm in parentheses, where it would be nice to know ahead of time that, oh, you're supposed to be connecting the arm here, right? Those are the kind of things that you're given the correct pattern, but without having the instructions in the proper order, it does make it a little bit difficult to get your brain wrapped around those kinds of things. So just be careful, be observant about that. Perhaps even read the full instruction for the round before you get started on it, so you can kind of wrap your head around the concept before you get going, so you don't have to frog back as much. That would be a good way to go. There have been some typo errors or things that were missing that I noticed, but if you have been crocheting long enough, I think you'll figure out what it was that she was trying to go for. So as I said, it is an amazing character, but those are the kinds of things that I would just be looking for as you're working through the pattern. Then we get on to doing the hair. And this is what I've just found. When you are attaching her hair, it's asking you to start on this ridge that you left behind on the head, okay? Got it, understood. Well, it asks you to align it with the right ear. Now, most of the time, what I would have said would be, okay, because it says with the right ear, not with her right ear. Okay, so with the right ear, I'm looking at the doll and I'm now looking at the right ear. Her right ear would be on the other side, right? So most of the time, if we're going to wrap our heads around how something is worded, I would have said the right ear, or when the doll is facing you, align the hair with the right ear. So you know that the doll is looking at you. In this case, what I did was I did not understand her directions very well. I attached it beside the right ear, not her right ear. Okay, I know this is a mouthful even for me. But what does that do? That means that as I was working the first strands of hair, and I was attaching them to the face and everything, and then I got around to the last part of the hair, what I was never told in the pattern was that these are the back strands of hair for Pamona. And these are the bangs. Well, as you can see, there's a problem. So that's the other thing, making sure that if you are writing a pattern, it is very obvious that the character, you are doing the hair on the front side or the back side. Call it the bangs. You know, do something to let you know that these strands are for the back of the head and these are the shorter bangs. All right, what I'm going to end up doing now is I do not want to rip this out. I am going to add additional hair underneath to make up what I'm missing right here. So I am going to, what I like to call shabooby something, but I'm going to have to fix it myself, because the strands made me want to give up. I really did not enjoy doing the hair. I will put it that way, but I kept going and I plugged my way through, and yes, I did it wrong, but I will prevail, okay? And I am not gonna frog it back. We are gonna just go and add some more strands of hair and go from there, okay? What I ended up doing was I added hair to the back. So you can see the shorter pieces here, but I actually did lots more tacking down, so that way it covers the head really nicely. So she just has more curls, so it came out fine. Like I said, I had to just makeshift the back to make it look cute, but it was not easy by any means. And the trousers are coming out too short, so I'm gonna have to add more rows to those. I am still working through this pattern, obviously, she's not done yet, but because I needed that sense of accomplishment, I needed to get something finished, especially for this review video, and I wanted to test out one of the other patterns, because finding out that this book is actually a collection of many designers' patterns, not just the author and the co-author. They have done some patterns in the book, but a predominant amount of the patterns that are shown in this book are all by different designers. I didn't find that it would be fair to to completely rate the book based on one designer's pattern. So having said that, I went ahead and I made up another plushie. I went with the easiest one. I needed something I could get done quickly. So I ended up going with making this cute little pygmy puff here. Now the pygmy puff is considered intermediate. It is designed by Christina Marie. So just to show you the picture, this is what the pygmy puff was meant to look like. Again, I'm using my scrap yarn, so mine is coming out closer to the image of the character that they show you here on one of the other pages. So this is the picture. Mine came out closer to this one, the more fuchsia toned pink here. And so let me just go ahead and do a little reveal. So this is how my little pygmy puff came out. You do hold 2 strands of yarn to make this body part here. It's a different hook size than what you used on the face and the feet and the hands and the little ears. I used the Premier Teddy yarn for the fuzzy part of this. And then I just used a standard 4-weight acrylic as my other lighter pink tone, which is the color theirs came out as well. This pattern, you guys, was very easy to follow. I would have highly recommended this book. If this book was based off of this pattern, we wouldn't have had as many things to say, that's for sure. But having said all of those things, there was one more thing I wanted to let you guys know that I discovered as I was going through this book. So one thing I noticed, because we're going and we're having lots of different designers compiling all of their designs into one book, what I have seen done in the past with magazines and things that I've worked with, and obviously that's a collection of different patterns, they would have you write them all in the same style. So we all know that, because we've seen many patterns as we work our way through, right, that each person that designs patterns often writes them differently. And so that's usually one of those things that if you're going to have somebody writing up a pattern that is a bunch of different designers, you would have them all make sure that the verbiage is in a similar style. So that way there's just no confusion on what is trying to be said, correct? I wanted to go in and double check and just see, okay, was there an editor that went in and did that, or was the designers meant to each do that? And having said that, on your second round of an ami, generally it's the increase around, right? Where you've already done your magic ring and now you're just putting an increase in each stitch. So on any of the patterns that I found, I looked to see how they wrote that direction, okay? And I wrote them down. And this is how many different ways of writing it that they had come up with. So because this is a list of a bunch of different designers, every designer is writing their pattern differently. That means that all of the instructions are going to be completely different. And so you have to go into looking at this book with that understanding that no 2 patterns will look the same unless it's by the same designer. I think my biggest takeaway is this. Do I recommend this book? If you are a new crocheter that is just getting started, I don't recommend this book. However, if you have some crochet knowledge, if you've done projects and you feel comfortable and confident reading patterns, I do recommend the book, because there are a lot of great patterns in this book. They have carried on so many of the amazing characters from the stories. They've done a good job on getting the characters' vibes across in their patterns and their designs. So those are all really good, really positive things. I just want you to have kind of the mindset going in that, number 1, you may find issues. I found quite a few issues. Number 2, you will probably need to understand how to interpret somebody's pattern. Make sure also, this could be number 3, make sure also that as you're going to your next direction in your lines, you know, you're going around 3, read the entire direction before you start crocheting. Don't just get started on the round as you might normally do. That's how I normally do it. Yes, this is a great book of a collection of patterns. I think it should be marketed and it should be shown right on the cover that this is a collection of designers' patterns. rather than making it appear to be only from a couple of different designers. I went into it thinking that these were going to be the only designers, and that was not the case. So these are just things that I want you guys to think about. If you heavily rely on photo tutorials, this would not be a book for you. Okay, if you do not know how to crochet the stitches yet, this would not be a book for you unless you can figure those things out before you get the book. Perhaps it's a book for later on in your journey with crochet. So even though Pamona's pattern may have had some issues and was more difficult to get through, that doesn't mean that the rest of the patterns in the book are going to be like that, okay? Okay, so I did thumb through the book to see if the other designers were acknowledged in a way that makes it obvious that this is a collection of patterns by multiple designers. The only mention that I found in the book actually is not even in the front, it's in the very back in the acknowledgements, where the dedications are saying thank you to the different pattern designers for all the hard work, yada yada. So they are acknowledged, and then also in the very, very back where it has the copyright information, it does mention each of the designers and their handles are on social media, but that's in the very, very back 2 pages of the book. And I think it would have been nice to know that that's what it was without having to actually see under each pattern that it was a different designer. When I've worked on magazines before, generally there is a styling guide that they want you to go by and how you write your patterns. This book did not have that. As I was going through, there were more than a handful of different ways that the design instructions were written, so no 2 patterns should be considered the same. And likewise with Professor Sprout, there were things missing, you know, like the mandrake's leaves. There was no pattern for that. I had to make that up on my own. There obviously were supposed to be leaves because you see it in the picture on the picture of the mandrake, but there was no instruction there. There were areas where there were issues with the patterns. They had a missing number, or the number was wrong, or the instruction was wrong, and you wouldn't have gotten to the same ending crochet stitch amount if you followed along with that. So if you are going to buy this book, I would recommend that you go into it knowing that you will need to know how to design. You will need to know how to fill in the gaps that a pattern has or can have, especially one that's not as technically edited as some others. Now, they did have an editor, but with the amount of holes and gaps that I saw in Professor Sprout, I can only assume that there may still be those kinds of gaps and holes in the pattern for some of the other characters as well. So the Pygmy Puff pattern, which was designed by Christina Marie, that one was very easy, very straightforward. I made it through without any issues. But another thing to consider too is the fact that there are no in progress photos, you guys. So if you are new to crochet and you need any kind of photo tutorial or anything that would show you maybe where to attach a piece or how to attach a piece or anything like that, this book would not have that for you. It also doesn't tell you how to do any stitches. It will just tell you different abbreviations, and that will say, you know, oh, this is what that abbreviation means. So those are the only kind of guidelines you're going to get. If you are able to just buy a pattern and from the pattern itself without any additional help you're able to make your way through, then you know this has a collection of amazing characters. The characters look like they should, but I'm going to be taking a break from making any of these patterns for quite some time. It was very frustrating working through Professor Sprout. I actually didn't think I would finish it at all. But I pushed myself to finish her because she's a beautiful doll, as you can see. Lots of pieces, but a lot of issues as well with the pattern. So I hate not giving this a 5 skeins review. I would probably give this 3 skein review. Just very borderline. You're not going to get any extra help, you guys. It's really not for beginners. If you're intermediate to advanced, and like I said, you can fill in those gaps, then this is definitely something that I think you can work your way through. And the characters themselves though are amazing. It's hard to recommend it 100%, you know, and I really wanted to be able to do that because I have really enjoyed any and all of the books that I've looked through so far. But now that I'm actually sitting down and doing products from the books, I think it's important to let you know that these are the things you're gonna have to keep your eyes out for as you work your way through the book. And I can only assume, as I said, that if there is this much of an issue with this pattern, and this is one of the longer patterns, that is something that could be throughout the pattern of books as well. You may be frogging a lot just like I was. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. I hope that the next review has a lot more positives than this one did. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're let know every time I post new videos here on Frizzy Bee Crochet. All right, see you next time. Bye.